Hey, this is Paul with LSP Data, and in this video, I wanted to give you a bit of value with regards to foreclosures and pre-foreclosures. Just as you can see on the screen, we're big fans of focusing on niche data, and many of you are very familiar with your own counties, right? So a typical use case looks like this. You go into your local county and you're interested in pulling foreclosures, right? A couple of things that you're probably looking at, right, is when is the sell date, right? Because depending on the state or county that you're part of, you can have up to 21 days as a heads up, and it just depends on what state you're looking at, right? And a couple of things that you could extract from these documents are obviously the property in question, right? Some of them don't offer a sort of, it's not super straightforward as far as like, this is the property that's going to foreclosure. Sometimes they may provide you with the legal description, or they may provide you with the original deed of trust document, right? Which you can easily search in that respective county, right? And as a few of you know, or you've probably been doing this for a while, that's probably the best way to identify, those foreclosures and what I call pre-foreclosures, right? So, but as you know, at that point, whatever happened already happened, right? Whether they had some sort of tax liens, maybe they were behind their mortgage payment, maybe code violations, whatever motivating factors that took place already took place. So as I made some videos in the past, I touched a little bit on the document types that you can identify within your local county, right? That would give you an indication of something that's going to happen, right? And in this case, things like list pendants, appointing a substitute trustee, which typically means that the typically around people falling behind payments, right? And there's a lot of other kind of document types that may tie specifically to your specific county, right? So for example, in Florida, right, there's different kinds of document types. And the nice thing about this is that sometimes they'll kind of summarize it for you. Well, on this specific one is different, but you have things like bankruptcy and list pendants as well. So things that are pretty straightforward, right? I noticed some of the county in Florida's, they'll summarize the document types as far as like, the specific, they'll compile things like tax delinquencies, mortgage issues, etc. So they'll give you the document types that are related to those events, which I found out to be very helpful, right? But anyways, going back here, my suggestion would be to look at the historical events that took place before a property went into foreclosure. Why? Because if you're looking for future deals, right, that's gonna a lot of times the same actions take place beforehand, right? So I'll give you a quick use case here. So let's say we're looking at foreclosure data in Denton County, right? So there's a notice of foreclosure. Typically, what the individual would do is, especially again, like I mentioned, some of them don't have addresses, right? You would zoom in, find the address. If you can't find the address, you find the deed of trust, right? And that's how you would identify it, right? And then you have to do a little bit of reverse engineering to find the original documents that took place right beforehand. So this obviously, depending on the provider or vendor, right, they'll provide you something like this, right? Which ultimately this is just an image. So as you're going through that, you're going to find the sort of information that you're interested in. Maybe you're looking into what was the original principal, the principal amount, right? Who the mortgage company was, etc. Which that's great and all. But if you're trying to do this at a scale, right? Again, I'm a big fan of focusing on marketing or getting on the phone, right? And trying to, negotiating with the seller. So if you're doing this on your own, this is probably costing you, a good amount of time, right? So if, again, we'll help you do this at a mass scale, right? So like I mentioned, a lot of those documents, we can easily process them ourselves, right? And basically what you end up getting looks something like this, right? So you get all that information, right, with the legal description, addresses, etc. But not only that, right? The other challenge is, what asset class is that? Is that a duplex? Is that a single family? Is that a condo, right? Everyone has their own asset classes. And even if you're an investor, maybe you have buyers that have specific requirements, right? So with that, this is the kind of information that we can provide you, right? So we can provide you the property types that you're interested in, right? The ownership type, maybe as an individual or maybe as a company, right? And the beauty of this is similar to the record that you saw earlier that was published, right? We can give you an idea of what other events took place before that particular foreclosure deal took place, right? Maybe there were evictions before that, right? Or debt claims, or like I mentioned earlier, maybe there was a substitute of trustee, which do happen beforehand, right? So let's say that document that I have pulled up there here in a minute, once this loads, let's say we pull up, the notice of foreclosures, right? And let's sort it by the most recent ones here, the 12th, right? So at the 12th, this gets published on the web, or for example, if you're looking Dallas or Florida, wherever you're at, right? Took place on the 12th. But before that, there was an appointment substitute trustee, which took place on the 6th, which was 6 days before, right? And there's plenty of those examples, right? So here, since I know those were foreclosed, this gives us an idea of what events took place. Like I mentioned in the video before, there's a lot of things that take place beforehand at times. Sometimes this may give you up to a 90-day lead, right? And again, depends on what your marketing strategy is, right? Maybe a lot of you may reach out to those property owners who are dealing with whatever circumstance they're dealing with, and you're trying to help them keep the house or do some sort of creative financing, right? So it just depends on your strategy. But what the feedback that we've gotten from our customers is that we're giving them a heads up, right? And that way they're able to talk to the homeowner and work something out that benefits both parties, right? Versus by the time it gets to the foreclosure state, right? Especially folks that look manually here, well, the homeowner's gonna be getting called and basically everyone's trying to lowball them, right? And at that point, regardless of how you run your business, whether it's predatory or not, that's up to you. But that's kind of what we see here, right? And again, if you're doing this manually, you're way ahead of a lot of people. But if you're running a business and you want consistent deals, etc., and you just want the ability to, go through the similar documents, right? But being able to choose, your own property, and also being able to just easily export this information, whether you're doing skip tracing or whether you're doing manual mailers, we can give you that information easily, right? And I won't show names or anything like that, but it's very easy to pull this information from our platforms. And again, like I mentioned in a previous video as well, we can build custom dashboards for you. And that way, this data is yours, whether it's in a daily, weekly basis. You can just sign into the portal. For some of them, we can even add images if you're interested in, right? And again, depending on what your use case is, most likely we'll be able to help you. If it's with automating documents and whatnot, we can also help you with that. So I'll leave it at that, but just wanted to cover how, smart investors will focus on specific type of events that take place before a foreclosure or auction. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.